cuffed around here. Yeah, that's the state capitol back there. I wanted to come out here and talk about politics. You know, there's a whole lot of political theater going on right now, and the media is definitely making a circus out of it. You know, what's taking place? Well, you've got the president saying, well, if you got your Secretary of State talking about you're going to send out all these absentee ballots before the election this year, well, then I'm going to take your funding away. You know, and that's the equivalent of, you know, daddy saying, I'm not going to give you allowance this week. But meanwhile, you know, you've got like another state of emergency taking place in the form of floods up in Midland. A couple of dams ruptured and has caused all kinds of, you know, destruction out there. So, you know, again, it's Governor Whitmer saying, hey, I need some funding, I need some support, I need some backup. And there's this whole tug of war back and forth type of thing. Meanwhile, just yesterday, you had a whole lot of tough talk coming from the state's attorney general, Miss Nessel, and she was basically saying, hey, it's the law that everybody wears a mask when in you know, a public place that's enclosed or whatever. And after all, you know, the restrictions now with you know, the manufacturing industry says that there cannot be any more tours. So technically, she's right. There cannot be any tours of any manufacturing facilities during this period of time. Furthermore, if you're on site of one of these manufacturing facilities, you've got to mask up and wear a mask. And our president has been known to make a lot of public appearances and not wear his mask. So, you know, there was a whole lot of tough talk there. But hey, Air Force One flew into town, Ypsilanti, Michigan, touched down at a Ford facility, and he gave the tour of the spot where, you know, they got to see ventilators being manufactured. And I don't believe that there was any actual footage of him wearing a mask. You know, so again, there's all of this political posturing. You know, after all, he's the president, seemingly do what he wants to. And if you are a governor that's in need, you might want to button your lip a little bit if you're trying to reach into the coffers of the federal government for more money. You know, there's been a great outcry for money since this pandemic has occurred, and she's asking for more and more money just for meeting the needs of Michiganders here, you know, for testing, for, you know, dealing with just helping to support, you know, having people stay home and stay safe. The National Guard was brought online to facilitate some of those needs around the state. So again, this just reminds me of a whole lot of, you know, political theater. And again, you know, the media is just making a giant circus out of this because meanwhile, it's a lot like a soap opera as I talk about this. You know, you got the main narrative and then you got these other little segments. A lot of different things going on, you know. There's like the main narrative that's taking place, but then there's also the little side plots and the other little stories that are interwoven into this big narrative. You know, namely, will Governor Whitmer, you know, declare her enthusiastic willingness to become vice presidential candidate for Joe Biden? You know, she's getting a lot of FaceTime airtime on all of the media outlets, and she's truly treating this like an audition, you know, before the American public. And for someone who's only been in office as a governor for, you know, less than 24 months, I don't know if it's really the best to be seeking a higher office at this point. There's still so many issues that have not even been addressed. There's a whole lot of things that have not been done. Whereas there's just been a whole lot of tough talk. And it's just humorous to me to see that she's the potential VP and she's battling with the guy that can't stop tweeting. And neither one of them have backed down from, you know, just having bickering and discussions. But that also makes me think, what if this is all by design? Because Michigan has often been a battleground state when it comes to national elections for the presidency. We were a state that swung red for the first time in quite some time in a presidential election. So it was in favor of Trump. So I think that there is a little bit to be said as far as how this is going to impact the Electoral College when the presidential election does take place. So I know that she is a Democrat. She's very progressive in a lot of her ways. She supports a lot of controversial things that I wouldn't advocate for, but that's her stance in some of this stuff. Namely, she announced at one point that she was a survivor of rape. She was a victim of rape at one point, and she used her story to express her genuine, heartfelt concerns for a law that was being discussed at that point in time. She's a supporter of Planned Parenthood, so you know where she stands as far as the Roe v. Wade issue goes. She's been an advocate of a lot of the LGBTQ communities. She's shown up at a lot of events and pledged her support, and she's very, very much on the far left when it comes to a lot of the cultural issues that are pressing the concerns of Americans today. So that's why I see that she would be a good fit for the Biden ticket. She's that young, charismatic, non-camera shy type of personality that's not afraid to give a few jabs to men in positions of power. She's done that around the blocks of Lansing as she's climbed the ranks of the political ladder. So I could see a lot of this stuff being put together by design, much like a buildup of a couple of wrestlers that have a little scuffle, and then there's another one, and then suddenly you didn't think that they would cross paths again, but then there was another issue, and now they got more tough talking, and everyone's putting out their promo videos, and people are lining up to see whose side you're going to take, and it's like the big build up to the WrestleMania type of event, brother, where the presidential election is going to take place, and she might be on the other side of the podium, facing down her opponent, and knowing in the back of her mind that if Joe Biden gets elected, he would become the oldest sitting president in our nation's history, and he may have an expiration date. She could take that seat of power at a moment's notice, and I don't think that she would ever shy away from that, because as I've said before, she's climbed these rings of power through all of her time of service here, at our Capitol and Senate and everything else like that. So just something to think
things
about.
just happening quickly? I mean, the buffoonery that's going on in the political arena is just dumbfounding right now. I mean, there's new current events that's taking place, making the headlines on the national level every single day, just about. I was just having a video shoot the other day, and I was just thinking about how, Gretchen might want to start zipping her lips as much as she's been asking for all of these relief funds and emergency, funds from the president. And it was like a day and a half later, there it was in the article talking about how she feels the need to censor herself when speaking with President Trump, because she needs to ensure that her state receives the federal funds that it needs during all of these states of emergencies that have been taking place. And then just within hours prior to that event, you have, presidential candidate Joe Biden making some comments to Charlemagne the God, talking about, I don't have the quote in front of me, but more or less saying that, if you're black and you're not Democratic, then you may not be so black. Yeah, so just that's tugging at some strings right there. I mean, that's on a couple of different generational levels. It's on the racial level, of course. It's a political level. Distasteful on a lot of different points. But, there is a measure of truth to it, only because the facts have often said that if you're a minority, you tend to lean Democratic. They're the ones that often push out the social reform programs. They're the ones who, show a little more diversity and things of that sort. They're the ones that kind of reshape the culture. Lately, they've been pushing it to the extremes. But that was just another comment that he made here recently. And then one of the more explosive comments that came was once again from, Governor Whitmer, potential vice presidential candidate. I suppose she had made some comments regarding the stay safe, stay home, propaganda that's going on. And she was just speaking about how now that some of the restrictions are being lifted and people are able to, travel a little bit more to other places and places of work and things of that sort, she just advised that while we approach the Memorial Day weekend, let's not use this as an opportunity to rush out to the lake like around Traverse City or something like that. Interesting she says that, simply because it wasn't very much longer after that comment that her husband, Mr. Mallory, I suppose, made a phone call to a dock owner up north, and he had requested that his boat be prepared and released to be placed on the water, in the coming days, so that he could make use of it as the Memorial weekend was approaching. And, the gentleman at the company informed him that that would not be a possibility, with the pandemic going on and businesses being closed, there was going to be large delays with the way that they normally do business. And, he was just passing along the information. Unfortunately, we will not be able to do that for you. And I guess the following comment was, well, would it make a difference if I told you I was the husband of the governor? Well, yeah, I guess after that remark, it definitely made the guy take notice. And he relayed that conversation to the media. And they are gobbling it up like some alphabet soup right now. But for good reason. Because, with all of the things that's taking place right now, that's one of the last things that you want to have happen. Because the boat and the location was actually a stone's throw away from Traverse City, the very same place where his wife had made the remarks as a governor about why we shouldn't just, don't go all buck wild willy-nilly about traveling now that, some of the restrictions are being lifted. And, he was placing himself in the position of, how about, my story's a little bit different. I got a little bit of clout. Maybe you want to take care of this for me? Yeah. So it's just another one of those interesting things, how people throw their weight around. And let's not be foolish and say that there wasn't likely some truth in that, even though she came to the podium a day or so later to try to clean this up, put a little political spin on the story to not lose, the favorable flavor of her name in the eyes of the public by saying, well, he just said that in jest. He was just making fun, kind of a joke, right? Well, what if it wasn't a joke and they actually did it? Would we hear about it? Think about it like that. After all, she comes from a family where I believe her mother was an attorney. Gretchen went on to become an attorney as well. Her father was actually the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield here in Michigan, one of the largest employers in our state. Highly influential, very powerful. And, somebody like that in that position has a whole lot of weight to throw around when it comes in terms of special interests, large funds to support campaigns and things of that sort. And it's already been demonstrated, if you just look through the timeline. She's very ambitious. She's very driven. And I think she's really just trying to audition for the next higher office, even though she has not completed nearly any of the things that she said she would while campaigning to become governor of this state after having, a good decade and a half of experience in politics. So here we go again. It's just more buffoonery on the highest levels. But hey, that's all I got for right now. I just had to get that off my chest. I feel a whole lot better now. Thanks for listening.
If you have any comments or things that you could add, maybe something that I overlooked or missed, you can drop a comment down below and we can pick up this conversation later. But that's all that I got for now. So this is Duran here off the cuff. Peace.